cool. Oh, sure. Oh, I'm taking them all?
Bring a bunch of components.
Thanks for the plug. I appreciate it, man.
What? Which? Yeah, I forgot when your talk is, so I should have called it out.
Yeah. Let's make space for the next one. Yours.
What? Oh, yeah, I'm tangled up. Yep, sorry. Awesome.
Okay, Matthias. So, Ulrich, to present?
Well, we're gonna share this, so we
you're
have
gonna
to
share,
juggle
okay.
this a little bit.
Yeah, so you
Or
can...
do you have two microphones?
Yeah, we have two.
Okay.
So one of them is this one, another is this one.
Okay.
You have 40 minutes total, and we'll show you when there's 10 minutes left. You have scarves to give out as questions if you have time for questions.
All right.
And water is here.
Thank you.
And let's make this thing. So which one do you have? It's HDMI, right?
Yes.
Okay, I need to switch it to HDMI here first.
This work.
Okay, it should work.
Brilliant.
You may need to downscale it to 1024 resolution, but yeah, it will work probably this way as well. Do it maybe that one. We have a clicker if you want.
Hello, test.
Trackpad is always funky. Oh, there we go. It came back. There we go. All right, if it goes
Hello,
away,
good morning.
I'll plug that in.
Welcome on our third day of DevConf and first live session in this room. And I think you already know all the important stuff, so let's just begin. Welcome, Dennis Gilmore, release engineer from Red Hat.
Hi all, I'm Dennis Gilmore. If you don't know who I am, I work on the Fedora release engineering team and look after making sure we can, actually ship Fedora and do some cool things. Let's jump into it. So we're going to take a quick step back. In the last 10 years in release engineering in Fedora, we merged core and extras, and that brought about a big amount of change. We had to write punji because the tooling that was used to make core was not allowed to be open sourced, so we had to start from scratch in how we make the distribution, the tools that we use to pull it together. So it was a big change. Then along came live CDs, and we're like, oh, this is really cool, let's add some live CDs. And then we went from one live CD to about 50,000 or something right now, a huge amount. Then we added cloud images when EC2 became a thing, and Fedora 14 or 15, I think 15 was the first release where release engineering produced the cloud images for EC2. And then in Fedora 21, we got the additions, where we then had to figure out how to go from making an install DVD with a repo of packages, and at the time I think it was about 6 or 7 live CDs and the cloud image, to making 20, three different editions with 3 install trees, and we had to revamp what we did. We added OS tree and Atomic in the last couple of years, and then we started doing 2-week releases for Atomic in Fedora 23. So now, every 2 weeks we push out a new release of Fedora Atomic, which includes an install DVD. We update the cloud base image and the Atomic image and the Vagrant box images, though we really only push out the Atomic side of it. We also create an updated Docker base image every 2 weeks as part of that process, which we don't push out to the greater world. But it sounds like a lot of stuff, but it's really not. The way we produce Fedora today, for up to 23, has not really changed a whole lot since the core and extras merge. We've tweaked things, we've kind of grown organically, we've added stuff, but it's the same basic
We're still working on this.
Sorry, this is actually it's my Samsung. That's
the other room. Okay. So in Fedora 24, we have been working on a whole bunch of changes and radically redoing what the way that we make Fedora. To, it's the biggest amount of change since the core and extras merged. We've had a whole bunch of organizational changes.
It's
we're
loading.
Refactoring
Okay. So
punji.
hopefully we'll be able
We're
to start
switching
now.
from
So
live
this
CD
will come our
creator
next
to live
presenter,
media creator for live
Matthias
CDs.
Paul Frields.
and Paul. So we're pulling people in from different teams as we go. So we're like, hey, we really want to do this thing. We don't have the people in the team right now. Let's go reach out to internal, DevOps or into Fedora engineering, because Adam Miller reports through Fedora engineering. He's not a releng person. He's just working full time on doing releng stuff as to meet the needs of the greater Fedora organization. So that's some of the organizational changes we've made. We've got a big change in for refactoring punji. So the old punji we would run in serial punji and feed into Kickstart, get out all the install media. It was clunky, and unwieldy, and anyway, it's what it was. So with part of the changes we're making, we're making the install DVDs and the boot media as tasks within Koji. We use the run root plugin in Koji to enable us to do that. So we can distribute stuff now and do it in parallel, which greatly speeds up the compose time. Fedora 23 GA compose, I think, took 9 hours from the time I kicked it off to the time it was done. We're doing a compose right now in about 3 hours. It varies a little bit. It's between 2 to 3 hours. It's much, much faster. We also run a single process. So instead of having to go off and spawn a whole bunch of different processes to do things, we will run one command, and it triggers everything, keeps track of everything, actually makes sure that what we're supposed to get is what we get. We also emit Fed messages at all the steps, so if you're at home, you can follow along and see, hey, the composer started, and it's at this stage, and it's at this stage. Part of the black box of releng was that all the log files were on the compose box, and they were never exposed to anybody but releng. You'd have to, dig into the machine and be like, oh, it was terrible. But so we have central logging. We have a whole bunch of metadata about the compose. We produce a whole bunch of JSON files that say, these are the artifacts in it, these are the RPMs in it, and there's, all the logging is available in a central place. So if you care about, hey, why did this go wonky? you can go look at the log files and figure it out yourself because it's, it's there, it's open, and it's available. And punji is taking over the management. So we had a bunch of shell scripts that would fire off live CDs. Punji does all of that as part of the config file. And the work on all this was mostly done, I've done some stuff, but it's mostly been done by Daniel Mack, because Punji, what we ended up doing was we took the compose tool that is used internally to make rel, and we pulled all the bits we wanted, and we grafted it into what we had, and we've come up with a new Punji. So a big part of this goal is unifying the way we make rel and the way we make Fedora, because that helps us to be more flexible, more agile, and enable people to, internal rel-eng guys that need to work on a feature, or we need a feature done, we can pull in people easily, and there's more knowledge, we're sharing more resources. Live Media Creator is a pretty big change as far as live CD creation goes. I don't know if anyone knows how live CD Creator worked, but it's probably me and Brian Lane are the only ones that actually know how it works. But I mean, it basically does a yum install root and then does a whole bunch of stuff on it, and at the end, you magically get a live CD. So Live Media Creator has actually been a tool that's existed for a long time. It gets shipped in Lorax, which is part of the Anaconda stack of packages, and it calls into Anaconda. It calls Anaconda, and Anaconda does the install to create the live media. So anyway, we get the benefit that we've instantly switched creating live CDs from Yum to DNF. It's gone from Python 2 to Python 3, which, are nice things to have. It has somebody that is responsible and wants to own maintaining Live Media Creator, to maintaining the tools. We've been trying for probably 4 years to get rid of Live CD Creator, and we've not managed to do so. We integrated it all into Koji. I have the last patches I need to deploy in production so that we can actually, and then there's like 5 lines of kickstart change to apply, and then we'll be switching to Live Media Creator for all the image builds in Fedora. Mike McLean did all the Koji development work, and Brian Lane enhanced Live Media Creator to suit the needs, and I did all the testing. If you have questions at any time, feel free to ask. Yep.
That's running in Chroot?
It's running in a chroot. The big problem with Live Media, historically with Live Media Creator, is that the running Anaconda in a chroot didn't work. It would blow up in weird and wonderful ways. And at least the live ISO, so initially the plan was to make disk images and enable Pixie to live for Atomic. The features for that don't actually run in a chroot, so we're working with the Anaconda guys on ways to enable Live Media Creator to make all the things that we need to make. So the next thing I'm going to talk over real quick is the Product Definition Center. It's a new piece that Ralph Dean worked on. It basically is a web front end and API for tracking everything that's in a compose. All the RPMs, the artifacts, et cetera, like that. That then gives us the knowledge, gives us the information that we can work with to look at automating things like the compose, the configs that define what goes in the compose, because we can say, oh, something in the Docker base image has changed, let's rebuild the Docker base image, but we don't need to rebuild everything else. Or, something that's in workstations changed, just rebuild that, and gives us better. It gives us the foundation in order to be able to implement rings in Fedora. And because we can now actually have the programmable, accessible information in order to figure out what's in the base, what's in the workstation ring, what's in the server ring, what's in the different pieces. So when we first proposed this, Josh Boyer on the RHEL list said, why does this need to change? It doesn't need FESCO to approve it. It doesn't need, It's self-contained. It's a releng thing. You know, should FESCO have the responsibility to approve it, et cetera? And the answer is really no. But we've filed changes for all the big things we're changing in release engineering because we want to create visibility in what we're doing and enable people to come along and say, hey, that's really cool. With that information, I can now do this really cool thing that I want to do, or I want to mine the data and see how much does the package set change over the cycle of a release, or in a 6-month period in Rawhide, or whatever the case may be. It gives us the ability to do that. And so release engineering as a whole is trying to be much more accessible and transparent in what we're doing. So the next feature that I'm going to go over real quick is Koji signed repos. Jay Griguski from internal releng has been working on this. I mean, the simple idea, like today, whenever we make repos and we want to make sure the RPMs are signed, we use a tool called Mash. And you can run it from anywhere, and it's really cool and useful. But there's a lot of use in being able to say, Koji, give me a repo from this tag with all of these packages signed by this particular key, and not have to run external tools on external machines. So that's what we're going to do. It unifies how we make the repos. So Bodai is going to be adjusted to, instead of calling mash in a cheroot on its back end, it's just going to say, Koji, go make me a repo for the F24 updates tag. And we'll use the same features in punji over time, and like redefine punji. It gives more transparency into how things work. The logs for Mash from Bodai, they're not publicly available. There's a whole bunch of logging that we get in releng that no one ever sees, and probably no one wants to see it. But that one time you do want to see it, it's going to be there, and allows us to scale the work out across multiple machines. The layered image builds is the next change. It's something that Adam Miller has been working on. It will enable us to make layered Docker images and integrate that into Koji and ensure that we know what goes into them. And it contains a whole bunch of stuff. Command line interface, extension of that. It actually has its own implementation of OpenShift v3 that it uses to build them. That output is fed back into Koji. And we're actually, as part of this, looking at putting in our own Docker registry, because the Docker registry upstream is somewhat terrible. They don't provide an API or any way to actually a great way to interface with them. So probably, are we going to have the Crane registry in 24, or is that?
24 is going to be a Docker distribution registry. We won't have a solid answer for the SDN, but there will be a registry that will be pushing Rawhide base images to as soon as they pull out of Koji.
Okay.
And also the layered images as well. I'm not sure if we'll have really good search indexing yet, but it's on the plan. If we can get it in time, we will.
Awesome. So the work for this has been done by a whole bunch of people, not just Adam, Colin Walters, Tomasz Tomacek, Tim Moore, and Amanda Carter, yelled at people, and I'm not sure if Tomasz is here, but they yelled at people, they got resources to make sure we could get everything in place, and it's probably one of the bigger changes in how we do stuff, and it's going to enable us to look at many more deliverable artifacts, which means that we need to be able to adapt and deliver more and more and more. So we have a priority pipeline, and this is stuff that we're looking at working on in Fedora release engineering. We're trying to document all of the releng processes internally, so that internal release engineers can come and help us as need be, and Two, anyone in the community wants to help, do stuff. It's easy for them to get involved in, traditionally we've been pretty terrible at getting drive-by contributions. We can now actually get those drive-by contributions, and we're working more towards enabling people to come along and say, hey, here's this thing, and we can accept it because it's really clear what you need to do. But this is something that's like an ongoing project that we're trying to get towards. We're trying to develop standardized processes for everything, pretty much, and that is, to enable, make things clearer, easier, enable people internally. But like in my ideal world, when Red Hat wants to hire a new release engineer, they come and say, hey, Fedora, who's in the community has been doing really cool stuff with and helping you do release engineering? And we go, oh, Joe's been helping us do some really good stuff, and he's being proactive, and he understands how stuff works. And then he gets hired into Red Hat, and he's immediately useful because he doesn't have a 3 or 6 month, time where he just has to learn how stuff works because, it already knows, he already knows how stuff works. And Red Hat internally uses the same processes as we do. It's an area where I think Fedora, is going to take a lead and define, how Red Hat as a company does stuff. We need to work out how we can drop i686 for different things, either stop making it entirely or, demote certain, we need to make more flexibility in how we compose Fedora so that, we can promote AR64 for server to primary and demote everything for i686 to secondary, but keep multi-lib enabled because people like to run Skype and Steam and other things that come as 32-bit and Wine, and most of the Windows applications are still 32-bit, et cetera. So as much as I really, really want to get rid of multi-lib entirely because I keep yelling it down saying, let's drop S390, let's get rid of the 31-bit stuff, we don't want that. Then that only leaves us with i386 on the x86 as the only arch that has multi-lib. Multi-lib's a pain in the butt. I would really like to kick it out the door. But so we need to work out the flexibility in the tooling to enable us to send pieces of the compose to different places and redefine, ultimately redefine what is a secondary arch, what is a primary arch, what is a primary deliverable, what's just a secondary deliverable that if we make it, we do. If we don't, sorry.
We make it and it gets less testing, or
ensure that
a group of people QA it, or
whatever the case may be. We're going to be working heavily on release automation for Docker and Atomic because we're expecting, in Fedora 25, probably 3 different Atomic OS tree-based things that, the Peter's IoT stuff for ARM. The workstation working group came to me last week and said, hey, we want to make an Atomic version of an OS tree version of Workstation because they see, a use case for that. And we make the Docker base images today. We don't make any of the layered images. We'll use Cockpit as a test case as we're testing all of the layered image stuff, but we're probably gonna end up with maybe 100 or 200 or more layered images, and we need to QA that. We need to make sure that what we ship is right, and we need to work out things like, do we put that layered image in the same Bodhi update as the RPMs, or do we do separate updates for layered images? There's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out as far as the release and creation of Docker and Atomic. We have a few things in our priority pipeline that are related to switching to Python 3, and we need to make everything use create repo C because it has a Python 3 API and create repo never will. We need to move things from Yum to DNF because Yum's never going to have Python 3 APIs. We want to move DVD creation into Koji as a task. So you would say to Koji, make this repo with this stuff and make sure it's signed, and Koji, go make this DVD from this repo. And abstract out of the tooling and put into Koji all of the releasing. So in the end, punji is likely to be something that will do the stuff it does today, but will also just be an orchestration layer to say, Koji, go do this stuff for us. And we need to figure out a great way to make the Docker images for all the architectures, including Power, S390, AR64. So we're continuing on the priority pipeline. I actually have 3 slides on this. I'm terribly sorry, but I mean, 2 years ago.
Are they in priority order?
No. There's no order, and it's just this is the kind of stuff we want to get done. 2 years ago, I got asked, how can I help? What things can I give someone to do to help you? And I couldn't even think of. I mean, there's lots of stuff, but I didn't have the time to sit down and write it. So I think that it's awesome that we have a big list of stuff that we want to do. Big thing we want to do is port everything to Python 3. The distribution as a whole is moving to Python 3. We really haven't done any work at all on that. So punji, mash, which we're probably just going to take out back and shoot. All our releng scripts, fed package, R package, Fedora packager. We also want to make sure that as we do that, we write test suites so everything works. A big thing today and that we need to work on is test suites and automation everywhere, because we're going to be doing more, and do it twice as fast as we did it yesterday. And we can't do that with the way that we've been doing things. We need to work out how to deliver 0-day fixes quickly. So when the hot bleed comes along, when shell shock comes along, we need to not be like, oh yeah, we'll get that out in 24, 48 hours, because that's how long it's going to take us to go through the Bodai process and get the update out to the world. It's a problem we need to solve. We need to ensure that we can rapidly get critical security fixes that can compromise machines onto users' boxes quickly. One of the things in redefining secondary arches, we want to bring all the Koji hubs together. I mean, the releng people that do the ops stuff, particularly in the secondary arch space, spend a lot of time babysitting processes that mostly work, but I mean, they get it done, they mirror the builds properly. We don't have the same kind of issues where Debian, that they can, one arch will link against different surnames because, something failed to build and they just carry on and they don't, we try to ensure a level of consistency across all the architectures. We also want to pull in a lot of the rel processes that they use, like license checking, ABI checking, RPM diff, and automate that into, so when you do a commit and you push a new tarball to look-aside cache, want to check the license of everything and make sure that licenses haven't changed, that everything's licensed okay, that these 2 files in this tarball are actually compatible license-wise with each other, and you can link them together and automate those checks, because people are terrible at doing stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of them that a big part of being flexible and faster, we also want to make sure that whenever Red Hat decides we're going to go do the next version of RHEL, that they can take what's in Fedora, take the tooling and processes, it's just a lift and shift. They lift it wholesale, take it internally, and then make the changes that define RHEL and add their extra bug fixes and extra polish and integration and stuff like that, but make that process smooth, that they start on Monday, by Friday they've actually got to compose, not, well, we start on Monday and 6 months from now we'll have a RHEL compose, make have Fedora lead what is going to be RHEL. We've got Koji 2.0. I'd really like to see Errata and Bodai. Errata, for those that don't know, is a tool internal to Red Hat that pushes all the errata. I would like to see, for the places where we interact with Koji with Fedora processes, with Bodai internal processes, and Errata in Bodai in Fedora and Errata in internal, where we have the same. We've got 10 minutes. Where we have the same tooling that's talking to, rather than write two different functions with two different APIs, we put a common API into Bodai and a Ratatouille for shared functions. Make it simpler to write tools that interact with the different systems, so we can share processes more. At some point, we actually want to solve the embargo problem.
Sorry, I don't want to
Yes,
take
sir.
too much time, but what is the status of Koji 2.0 right now?
It is.
Headline summary.
The headline summary is they're still trying to figure out what exactly it's going to be, and the initial thought was that they would just go and rewrite something and start from scratch, and they're like, no, that's actually a bad idea. Let's work out how we can iteratively change and keep Koji functional while we go from the 1.0 model to the 2.0 model. So they're still trying to plan exactly how they're going to do that, because it's not going to be the ground up rewrite that they initially thought that would be a great idea. Decide that would be a bad idea. For a long time, people have wanted to be able to deal with embargo stuff. OpenGDK is a big example. When there's a security bug, we know about it beforehand. We build everything and run it through the TCK, et cetera, internally, which takes about a week before you can actually ship something. We can't do that in Fedora. We've got to wait until that CVE is public before we can, build it and then go through, because every OpenJDK build, I don't know if anyone knows it, they run the internal Java team, run it through the TCK and the Java certification, and make sure that it complies. So the Java's, the OpenJDK and Fedora is a compliant, Java, and that takes a week. So they really, we can't deal well with the security bugs. And there's been a few other times where being able to have deal with embargoed issues would be nice, but as everything is open, it's somewhat difficult. We'd like to look at ways to leverage internal support people to help us deal with the basic day-to-day tickets, sorting of things, pointing people in the right direction. Need to figure out how to do that and what that actually means. We want to clean up all of our scripts. We want to, one of the issues with FedMessage is it doesn't guarantee delivery. And I complained to Ralph Bean enough that he wrote a thing he's called Gill message, and it ensures that that message gets delivered. So we need to evaluate what parts of the process that we're going to rely on FedMessage, but we want to ensure that the messages get through where we need to use Gill message. We want to look at doing some gating of builds to make sure that if the surname bumps, we can have a process set up that automatically deals with that, or sets up side tags, things like that. Make sure that signing works. Have rawhide signed. We need to work on tooling, or on a service to be able to sign rawhide, sign atomic repos, sign. There's a whole bunch of things outside of just signing the RPMs that we need to sign today. We need to work out a way to do that without a person having to type in a password, because that's a big bottleneck. We want to actually implement Fedora rings and enable us to do different things. The layered, perhaps look at pulling in non-RPM content into layered images, and and yes, sir.
What's an ALF?
That's what was in the wiki. I copied from the wiki page. I nearly deleted it, but I'm like, I'm gonna leave it there. That's what's in the wiki in the priority. We want to finally satisfy Richard Jones's request to have some signed metadata that can be used for invert builder and to implement simple stream stuff so you can see image. I'm not sure the exact. Yes, sir.
So, related to that, Richard Jones is a rather intelligent guy and rather prolific with code, right?
Yep.
It seems like one of those things where, if it's just generating a text file, we should definitely have a process where someone like that can come in and, top, test a patch, contribute it,
Yep.
and ideally see it ship.
Yeah.
Not 6 months later.
A big
request on Gill. So, all the bits of that.
a big part of the issue with it today is the signing. It has to be clear signed like we sign the checksums. it's got the text and it's got all the GPG signature, not GPG, but all the signature stuff inside of that text file, just like we assign checksums, and we have no way to automate that. And apparently, having it not signed is not an option, and that's the big issue more than the actual making the metadata that it needs. It's the signing.
Also, for the development of the tools, so Dennis talked about previously about how we want to clean up the release engineering script. So there's already work started on making a Python library that makes all the different release engineering common processes put into Python, basically API. And there's only like 9 functions there right now, but we're adding to it as we go, and all of them have PyTests. All the functions are mocked, and we will have a policy if you create a pull request for a change, the tests must pass. Just basically average due diligence. But we want to make that for the future because a lot of stuff now you need permissions to be able to test it properly. Yeah. So the goal is to allow people who have skill set to be able to do those kinds of things.
We kind of slowly started changing, and we're now getting to a point where we're rapidly changing in how we do stuff.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. I mean, we now have a requirement that if you're submitting something that's new, you have to put documentation in and document that thing so that, in our docs, we have everything. Yes, sir.
First of all, thanks for all the work in the Releng team. A question related to word builder and index files. I guess you would remember the discussion. So word builder project has this notion of an index file that describes a bunch of metadata about disk images that it publishes. So there was a ticket to let the Releng team publish the index file as part of Fedora compose.
Yeah, it's been open for 2 years.
Yes, exactly.
It's on our list. I mean, because of it's why it's here.
I'm just wondering what's the blocker there?
Part of it's automatic signing, and part of it is we need to work out a way to actually do it because at least if I understand it correctly, it needs to be done at the distribution level, not at the per release level. So it involves changing a little bit how, it needs to be integrated in the process, but it also needs to be somewhat separate because it needs to not be really done at like compose time, but it needs to be done when we're pushing the content live, so that it.
Would that be a piece of functionality that would almost come out of the PDC stuff?
Possibly. I mean, we could probably look at like PDC as an integration point and how to do that and get the data that it needs. I've only got a couple minutes left.
2 minutes if you need to get to anything you really want to do.
So this is really the last slide, and then it's just questions. But just as a whole, we want to be more flexible and proactive. We don't want to be reactive anymore. We need to be able to move with the changing landscape as new content types, new things come along. Atomic. I think I said a couple of years ago that Docker's not the last shiny. Something else is going to come along. Atomic came along, and there's going to be something else that's going to come along as well. We need to be able to flexibly deliver Fedora, rapidly deliver Fedora, and ensure that we don't compromise our foundation. So that just means everything we do, it needs to be audible, accountable, reproducible, done in a way so that we can be confident that what we're shipping is a good thing. And to do most of this, we need to work really closely with the QA team to make sure that there's continuous integration and testing, and automated testing happens of everything. The QA guys are putting in like auto QA to test install media, and we're getting there. It's just going to be lots and lots of work. So, last thing, any questions? Or come talk to me afterwards, and feel free to yell at me or whatever.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. So I have 3 scarves. Let's see if we can get 3 really quick, good questions, and I can give them out, or I'm going to keep them.
Functionality and how to make it like flexible to work with the. Yeah. So
Out of time. Ask me.